Masters Week is finally here once again. The field is set. The contests are up on FanDuel.com. The rain is coming. We're here to break it all down from a PGA DFS perspective, letting you know all need to know before this week's event. We're going to break down roster construction. We're going to talk about Augusta. We're going to talk about our favorite players in each salary tier over on FanDuel to get you ready for the 2023 Masters. This is the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire, joined here as always by Brandon Gdula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. Brandon, it is Masters Week. How you doing today?
I'm good. Real good. We're recording this live.
Yeah.
Which we haven't done in a while. So I feel a little rusty. Trying to stay in frame as I dodge around. But yeah, I mean, it's been the past month I've been trying to look ahead to Masters stuff. I always try to learn new things about Augusta and try to find edges there. And, kind of the harsh reality is a handful of guys can probably realistically win, and anyone else would be a shock because it is the Masters. But yeah, kind of looking forward to saying that a lot of great golfers are playable in our FanDuel lineups, and you can kind of pivot around as you see fit.
Yeah, I think it's a good week to embrace the typical mindset we have with DFS, where you try to be different without being dumb. And the question is, what do we do to be different this week? What qualifies as being different? How do we do so without being suboptimal and stuff like that? So we're going to break down pivots we see in the field. We're going to break down what you want to emphasize at Augusta based on the research Brandon has done leading up to this event. And let's just break down our favorite plays over on FanDuel for this week. But first, before we do that, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast, because we have not just PGA podcasts every week, but also MLB DFS via the Solo Shot. We have NBA DFS for a couple of days still via Tom Vecchio in the Daily ISO, UFC for big events via Austin Swaim, all right here in the same podcast feed. So go make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating as well. Also, if you want some betting content around the Masters, tomorrow we'll be talking to some guy named Brandon Gdula on covering the spread to break down his thoughts on betting insights for the Masters over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So if you want to bet some outrights, bet some top 20s, stuff like that, check that out. That'll be on the Covering the Spread podcast feed in the morning and also over on the FanDuel YouTube page after the fact later on. Are you looking to have a stake in the Masters this weekend? Well, FanDuel has you covered with the PGA Mega Eagle contest, which is now live. Test your knowledge of the PGA Tour by putting together a 6-person lineup while staying under the salary cap and using FanDuel's live scoring feature. Follow along as you compete for a share of $750,000, with first place taking home $150,000, all for just $15. The entry fee, $15 there. Again, $750,000 total dollars in prizes, whether it's household names like Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth, or lesser known golfers, some sleeper plays you may have your eye on. They're going to tee off on Thursday. There are plenty of options for you to fill out a lineup as you compete for first place. Thursday will be here before you know it, so submit your FanDuel lineups today. Eligibility restrictions apply. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app for more details. Let's take a look here at the Masters. Shockingly, it is at Augusta National. I'm sure that you are all blown away to hear that. It is 7,545 yards. It is a par 72. There are 88 golfers in the field for this year. The top 50 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds. And a reminder that the 10-stroke rule no longer applies. So just the top 50 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds. Now, given the number of guys who are legacy invites and stuff like that, it's still a decently high cut odds for the top guys in the field, but it is worth mentioning that only the top 50 plus ties make the cut after the first 2 rounds. Brandon, as mentioned, you've been looking at Augusta for months now, trying to dig in and try to identify what stuff matters and trying to find golfers who will do well at Augusta. What have you uncovered and what should we know about Augusta before we fill out our lineups?
I have learned that good golfers tend to do well at Augusta, and that bad golfers and golfers who are on the senior tour, sorry, the Champions Tour, they don't do quite as well. So
Have you pushed these findings to like the Pulitzer's for journalism, I guess. Actually,
it's
would
just
that be
hey, this is journalism.
what would this be for? Would this be for would you get like a Nobel Prize for this? Like which awards category would this be under?
Probably in Nobel Prize in mathematics. I think.
Okay, Nobel Prize in mathematics. Have you considered applying? Do I nominate you? How does this work? I've never been up for a Nobel Prize.
I feel like it's a nomination process, and
Okay,
it's
I'll work
tacky
on
to
that, and you tell
nominate
me
my
what you
own
learned. Yeah,
to nominate my
outside of
own work.
good
Yeah.
golfers are good. I'll do it for you. Don't worry.
But whenever we talk majors, and really tough fields, because we have I still don't know if it's elevated or designated events or something else, but we've had a lot of extra fields be really strong. And one of the secrets that's kind of an open secret and something that we can kind of complicate a lot is, you know, you want to build lineups where you have like maximum win equity. And if you're taking chances on guys who are like tiers and tiers below the average, which is elevated for a field like this, you tend to do yourself a disservice. We don't have it on the rundown, but I do actually have some notes on not optimal lineups, but lineups that won the Mega Eagle or the equivalent back from 2018. So I can get kind of dig into some numbers throughout the show as they kind of fit. But um, it's a course where past history is more predictive than anywhere else on the PGA Tour, according to Data Golf's data on course history, and how do you get into this to play in it, you're good, and then how do you play well in it, well, you're good overall. So like I'm not trying to be like tongue in cheek anymore about it, but you kind of want to find ways to maximize the amount of golfers you can roster who you feel actively good about. And we talk all the time about wanting 6 out of 6 chances for our guys to have win equity. I don't really know if that's super doable this week because frankly, I'd be surprised if like I haven't gone down the list, but maybe 12, 15 names, I'd be like, okay, makes a lot of sense. Outside of that, like I would be surprised that certain names won. So I don't think it's a week where I can sit here and say, like, I need to make sure that all my guys have a chance to win just because it's so top heavy. But in terms of the key stats, like I kind of wanted to sort of preface that I'm letting generally overall skill win out here. As for like the key stats, one thing we talk about all the time with Augusta is driving distance. And I don't think that like that's wrong. And I don't think that people who put emphasis on it are wrong. But off the tee play does a better job of explaining in round strokes gained than just distance or accuracy. Actually, accuracy actually kind of wins out over distance. And one way we can think about why that might be is that there are just certain golfers who get to play the Masters who can hit it really far but don't have complete games otherwise, and they kind of struggle. So just looking at distance as like a singular variable is not going to be enough. Strokes gained off the tee is a much better predictor. It's like 2 to 3 times more predictive in terms of predicting in-round strokes gained at the Masters, which we have 2 years of data from thanks to Data Golf. ShotLink data at Augusta historically is a huge nuisance, but Data Golf has some stuff, so definitely check that out. But so off the tee, I'm looking for strokes gained off the tee, not just distance alone. After that, we know the typical other variable that we like to look at and say with Augusta is that it's a second shot course, which means strokes gained approach. It's your iron play. It bears out in the data. It has the strongest R squared value within round strokes gained compared to the other stats, which is typical for any PGA Tour course, but we see it again at Augusta. So letting strokes gained approach do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I think one thing that I found that was probably more insightful than anything else is we always talk about the greens. We look at the greens. We know that they're really tricky, really fast, just difficult in every sense of the word. But it's actually strokes gained around the green that kind of gets a bigger boost with predictiveness in terms of in-round performance than actually putting, which is kind of decreased from the tour average. I'm not going to go through all the numbers because it's like hard to kind of talk about and like cling to, but point being better with your wedges is going to be more important here than it's your average course, and the putting itself is actually surprisingly a little bit less. Now, this is just 2 years of data, but that's a lot of rounds that adds up quickly. So again, if you want to get like granular, I think you have a hard time being granular without looking at all 4 facets of strokes gained because they're all important. But in terms of weighting, for me, it's going to be approach, off the tee, around the green, and then putting, which, yes, captures everything, but you give different weights to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way that I'm going. So all that is to say, I want good ball strikers who are complete players. It's not revolutionary, but I'm not just looking for great tee to green guys or great putters or super long hitters. I got to see more than just one aspect.
I think to back up your point on distance, looking back at last year, and like this can be flawed to look at just golfers who finished well and where, their various stat profiles. But if you look back at last year, golfers who finished inside the top 10 include Colin Morikawa, who ranked 83rd in distance on the PGA Tour last year, but 29th in accuracy, 36th in strokes gained overall at the tee. So strokes gained off the tee encapsulated how good he was in that regard. He just wasn't super long. Corey Connors, same thing. 78th in distance, 20th in accuracy, 5th in strokes gained off the tee. Sung J M, 71st distance, 27th accuracy, 8th off the tee. So I think that I'd agree with you where if you can gain strokes off the tee and be good there, I don't really care how you do it, because we do see guys who are of that mold push for like really good top end finishes here. So do I want distance? Yeah, of course I want distance. Like, why not at a longer course? Am I going to sell out for it? No. Am I going to prioritize it overall over overall strokes gained off the tee? No. I think that those are the better ways to play things here, based on both what you found. I think that was kind of, what led me down that path initially, but then I think there's other data that backs it up, and it's not just, me looking for reasons to agree with you on a certain thought process. As far as the around the green play goes, I think there's 2 reasons to bump that up as well. One is, like you mentioned, there is the actual data saying that, but also anecdotally, if we have, 50 or whatever amazing golfers in this field, it's harder to have a key flaw and still be good, which is why we talk about overall golfer quality here more than we do at the Valero or whatever. I mean, we did there too, but like more than we might in other events because it's harder to have holes.
Yeah. We've started to look at just overall performance more than we have in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't really get beaten up in a particular aspect and be top 5 this week. Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe you can, maybe the data does say that. But Scheffler last year, top 13 in all 4 strokes gained categories. Rory, 34th in putting, but it is what it is. Shane Lowry,
if you sink it from around the green. So,
yeah. So, you want to see good golfers, and I think maybe this is a good time too, just to touch on like the Mega Eagle stuff, those winning lineups. So over the past 5 years, 6 golfers per lineup over the past 5 years. Obviously, 30 golfers entering the Masters. Only 3 of them were ranked outside the top 50 in the official World Golf Rankings. Robert McIntyre was 74th, CT Pond 176th, and then Victor Hovland, whenever his salary was 7,100 and he was low AM, was outside the top 900 in the official World Golf Rankings entering. We know like Victor Hovland's kind of a special talent now, and he was low AM, but he finished 30. He finished 32nd, but the salary of almost minimum was enough to get there. But you're kind of like, you want to find ways to make sure you're being balanced. And yes, you can still, roster the superstars like the chef. Like you need the winner. We know that, right? But it's, you don't really want to have multiple like super low salaried guys. Again, similar stat here, 27 of those 30 golfers in winning lineups had a salary of at least 8,000. The other ones, the three who were below 8,000, Victor Hovland, again, low AM, kind of special. And in hindsight, probably would have viewed him as like someone who could really play well at this course, despite the fact that he doesn't chip well. CT Pond, pretty much an anomaly there. And then of course, the year that Rafa Cabrera was 7,400, was a top 25 golfer in the world. So basically,
he was missalaried.
Yeah, and then basically, unless you're Hovland or missalaried, there's been one guy over the past 5 years,
right,
at a true punt level salary to stand out. So just be careful this week. And this as much as the other stats all illustrate, don't get careless just because it's easy to make the cut. Don't get careless with maybe some live golfers whose salaries are low. That's not to say that they can't play well, but you don't want multiple punt plays just to get access to 2 or 3 superstars, because you're going to do yourself too much of a disservice unless you hit on an anomaly. And if that's how you want to play things, go ahead, but that's not what the stats say to do.
And I want to go back to what you mentioned about the top 50 in the world golf rankings. The world golf rankings are pretty flawed. As far
they're getting
as
better.
They're getting better. But if we look at Data Golf's true strokes gained within this field, even if you go I know that the top 50 thing may seem daunting. Oh man, I have to have 6 golfers who are that good. It's not that bad, honestly, given the way things are composed here. If I look at the top 35 in true strokes gained across the past 6 months, you've got a decent number of guys with salaries below $9,000. There are 10, 7 right there, 8. There are more than 10 golfers in the top 35 with salaries lower than $9,000. So you can fill out a 6-person lineup while staying under the salary cap and not having guys who don't have a realistic path to a top 10 finish. Maybe not a path to a win, but a top 10, they can do that. So I feel before you put a golfer in your lineup, ask yourself, can I realistically see this person finishing inside the top 10? If no, I would try to get up, try to get up from that salary, try to find another shot, because I want 5 guys with a shot to win. If I need to go for a 6 guy who has good top 10 odds, fine, I can live with that. I think that's the way to go. I agree with you where we're not going to get 6 guys with realistic win odds given the field, but even in a cash game, upside matters because you want to erase the mistakes you make elsewhere. And so I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind.
And I'm not super familiar. So I was double checking stuff because I don't really track the world golf rankings. There are 8 guys in the top 50 with salaries of 7,900 or lower.
Yeah.
And there are 14 in the 8,000 range. It's doable. And it basically says take some caution with the guys you're willing to take chances on. And that's all I can really throw out there. And if people want to take some long shot swipes, feel free.
Yeah. Just don't think that it's impossible, but even though it sounds tough, it's not impossible to fill out lineups that would fit this criteria. Okay. You mentioned, Brandon, that course history does matter a lot. So let's dive into golfers who have done well at Augusta in the past. You're looking at the strokes gain numbers from the past 5 Masters. Who stands out to you when you filter it that way?
Yeah, so look, it's the Masters, and I always list past winners who are in the field, and that's
everyone.
So
should I use Vijay Singh?
I'll clarify that a bit later, but yeah, I like to look at the past 5 years for courses because I want to kind of account for somewhat recent form, and not just look at, especially for the Masters, a decade ago, because it's not going to be predictive. But I then have Will Zalatoris, and I'm only looking at golfers with at least 2 starts in that span. But Will Zalatoris, I think, is going to be a really interesting name this week because he's kind of working his way back from injury, working on the swing. Salary of 10,000, but a T6 for him and a solo second. Hard to do much better than that. Another name that we'll probably talk about, or you'll hear talked about in some detail because of this fact that he is no longer with the PGA Tour, but Dustin Johnson, 10,300. Obviously, a win in 2020 in the year that it was in November. Missed the cut after that, but then top 12 in the other 3 events, bookending those events. Also, I have a table of this in my helper on numberFire.com. It's easy to follow from that regard. Scotty Scheffler, 2 top 20s in the win. John Rahm, 4 top 10s and a T27 from last year. Cam Smith, a very intriguing name again. T3, T10, T2, T51, and T5. I remember always talking Cam Smith on the Masters show over the years. And like, he doesn't seem that fazed by the Live Tour versus PGA Tour stuff. He said that nobody's ever really told him we're a PG show, but no one's really been rude to Cam Smith. Joaquin Neiman seems to feel the complete opposite. So I don't know what's happening, but Cam Smith, I think, is going to be fascinating for this week. Rory McIlroy next up at a 2.03 strokes gained per round. Second missed cut, T5. Of course, the second from last year, sort of like not a very competitive solo second necessarily, but that's kind of Rory's bag and a lot of his great finishes. And Justin Thomas, I'll kind of stop there.
Mm-hmm.
But Justin Thomas, I think, always had the rap of like not being particularly good at Augusta, and it's not like it's been terrible, but it just hasn't been phenomenal. And nobody quote me on this, but like if we would look back at his full career, he'd look worse. But over the past 5 years, T8, T21, fourth, T12, and T17. I don't think people are going to want to play Justin Thomas. I don't think people have the reason to play Justin Thomas, like based on super recent stuff. But you can justify playing Justin Thomas pretty easily if you're willing to say he's going to revert back to like who Justin Thomas is sooner rather than later. And the salary of 11.2 is pretty elevated, so like that's substantial. But anyone on this list stand out to you? Actually, I guess, and then I'll rattle off the rest because there's some value names down there.
I do want to ask you about the live guys because we have a good read on how John Rahm is golfing. We have a good read on Will Zalatoris, playing through the injuries and stuff like that. We don't have as good of a read on the live guys, and a lot of them are on this list of golfers who have good history at Augusta. Dustin Johnson is there, Cameron Smith is there, Patrick Reed is there, Brooks Koepka, obviously. There are a lot of guys on this list who fit that. And I mean, we can if you go to Data Golf, they have data on, strokes gained relative to the field in the live events, but there's no like shot link data in terms of like showing how they're doing it and stuff like that. So I can see that Brooks Koepka had success in Orlando, but it's harder to tell how he got there. So how are you judging their form? Do you find yourself gravitating towards them here? Are you off those guys? I know it's not a one size fits all discussion, but what tools are you using to try to make the decision on individuals?
So I'm still tracking live scores round by round, adjusting for recency, so that I can model things out for whenever they are in the field. That doesn't really help anyone else necessarily to like my personal database, but I think like frankly, the best resource in this instance is Data Golf. Like whenever these guys are going to be in fields, they have a query tool. Their stuff is, their samples are going to be smaller. Their past 50 rounds are going to stretch back longer than, other guys. So it's going to be hard from that perspective. So maybe you put like the time restraints on it, which you can do on Data Golf and look at the past like 6 months of data. I think that's relevant, but you kind of have to figure out like what, and I kind of explain this very often whenever we get like swing season events and we're getting like a European Tour or DP World Tour and Corn Ferry Tour call-ups and trying to compare like what's a top 10 on the Corn Ferry Tour compared to the European Tour, that kind of stuff. I mean, Data Golf does this for us, but they also have a field strength adjustment tool. They're they're pretty high on the Live Tour, kind of rated as like an average PGA Tour event right now. So like good results there are probably pretty solid. Then again, there are 54 holes. That's more variance. We don't know what the granular stats are. So it is case by case. For me, though, like the best case I could make for these guys is they really want to win.
Yeah.
But like Rory's really wanted to win
Sure.
at Augusta.
Motivation only goes so far when it's the freaking Masters and everyone has high motivation.
Like everyone's game is basically geared to play their best golf like right now. And when we talk about current form over the past 3 months, we'll see there's a ton of guys in great form who are superstars. So I think it is case by case. There aren't a ton of plays that I would prefer from the Live Tour compared to other guys. Like I'm not going to prefer Cam Smith to other names who have been golfing on the PGA Tour. I think it might come more in like the value range with Joaquin Niemann, who I think is the only Live guy in my helper. I did 16 golfers total for this week. I think
Snubbing
it's just
Mito.
Mito's close. The win simulation model likes him well enough, but yeah, I just like I'm not going out of my way to play these golfers with depressed.
But you're
salaries.
also not going out of your way to actively avoid them either. Is kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah, not necessarily.
Right.
I think like they're still playing golf. They're playing more golf, I think, than they probably even. And they're going to be playing more golf than I think they initially thought they were going to be playing. But that's a conversation for another time. Like, Brooks Koepka just won in Orlando. How much is that worth? You can try to quantify it the best we can. Like Data Golf tries to quantify that. Am I going out of my way to play Brooks at 89 whenever his win odds have shortened from 75 to 37? And I think a lot of people are going to take note. Not really. Playing 54 holes is different than 72 holes at one of the most demanding physically and mentally courses that we have on. Like, it's tough to walk Augusta. Not that I've done it, but that's something that we definitely know. Certain golfers like Brooks, not necessarily in the best of health, and I don't watch Live Golf for a lot of reasons, so I can't say exactly how he looks.
I don't know if I get the CW, to be very honest.
I think you got to download the app, but
Wait, really? It's on the actual TV?
Like I think you can watch it through the app.
I have cable. I just, I use it to watch NASCAR, instead.
So
like
yeah, I mean, I'm not like out, and part of why you're asking is the Cam Smith, the Dustin Johnson thing, but just below, JT on this list of current form is Patrick Reed. Brooks is on the list. Like, I wouldn't talk anyone out of playing the Live guys, but I don't really view it as like, oh no, their salaries are too low. They're playing just as good golf as anyone else. Can't really quantify that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be some of them in the mix. And frankly, just look, I want it for like the drama. I love the drama of it. If there's some guys in the mix on the weekend, but they're not necessarily going to be core plays for me from a DFS standpoint whenever I have other viable options at similar salaries.
And again, Data Golf is doing the work to adjust for field strength. They are digging into those numbers better than I could. And when you compare like Data Golf's numbers versus salaries, a lot of the Live guys aren't going to grade out as being phenomenal options. So that's the reason I'm not super high on most of them. I do like Mito, who we'll talk about later on. But it's not like a hard and fast rule. I'm not actively avoiding them for any reason, stuff like that. Just I don't wind up on a lot of them just when I consider salary and stuff like that. So you mentioned that a lot of the stuff, I'm going to skip over the winners because a lot of them are old. Okay. It's very ageist of me, but here we go. Anyway, let's talk about current form because you mentioned that a lot of the studs in this field are in good form. Enlighten me. Have we heard anything from John Rahm McIlroy recently? Have they been hanging out, sipping White Claws? What have they been doing? Any noteworthy events from them?
I can't speak to what they've been drinking.
Mm-hmm.
So Should we scrap the segment?
No.
Okay.
I've decided against that.
So over the past 3 months, according to Data Golf, the leaders in true strokes gained in the field for the Masters, Scotty Scheffler at a plus 3.05, which is disgusting. Anytime anyone gets above a 3 over really any sample, but it's seven events for Scheffler. It's a pretty solid sample to be at a 3. Pretty sick.
Yep.
I think Scheffler's going to win. I think it's going to happen again, but nearly made the final at the match play, which I know we talk Data Golf constantly, but like they have strokes gained for the match play, which may not be perfect, but it's at least something that just because match play is its own thing. So the strokes gain stuff is probably not as important, but nearly made the final at the match play. Scheffler did, won the Players, won the WM Phoenix Open, T4 at Arnold Palmer Invitational, T12 at Genesis. He's got 10 straight top 12s or better. Like, that's phenomenal. I think maybe the only case you could make against Scheffler as being a good play is that the putter kind of seemed a little weird whenever he ended up losing in the match play, but that's the kind of thing that you only pick up on if you're watching stuff and you wouldn't really know otherwise. And Scheffler,
like he got rattled in the consolation or like the semifinal, which means that he got to the semifinal, which is I think still good, even for Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah, like look, you with a field like the Masters, you have to nitpick reasons for someone and for against someone. And if for you're like, I think Scheffler's losing it with the putter.
We have a better reason. Ryan Spring on YouTube, his last name is Spring, so I feel like he'd have a good read on this, says that the weather narrative is against Scotty. Scotty doesn't like the elements, and if a guy with the last name of Spring is giving us this read on an event with a lot of rain in the spring, I feel like I gotta trust Ryan here. So I'm gonna say the weather narrative is the strongest reason to avoid Scotty Scheffler.
Who does like the weather?
I like rain if I'm inside. I think rain is good. Pro rain.
I'd be interested to see the splits for Scheffler.
Oh, you meant golfers. I thought you meant like humans. Okay, sorry. No, that's different. Yeah, cool.
No, because like, sure. Look, if your reasoning for not liking Scheffler is that he doesn't like the elements, that's viable. I don't know enough about every golfer's personal preference, and we don't really have good data on. We have some like stuff in wind, but other than that,
random question that's not correlated. It rains a lot in Northern Ireland, correct? Is that a curiosity?
I don't know the climate
I think it
of Northern
does.
Ireland personally.
I think it does. Just not related to anything. Not related to anything. Just asking hypothetically.
I'll continue on with the list, and you can research the annual precipitation in Northern Ireland. But John Rahm is at a 2.86. Feels like kind of a while ago at this point that Rahm was literally unfadable, like unbeatable. Won the Tournament of Champions, won the American Express, the Genesis. And those are just in 2023 alone. He ended 2022 with great results. His past 3, though, T39 at Arnold Palmer, withdrew from the Players due to an illness, and 1-2-0 at the match play, which I don't care about. Again, if your reasoning is like Rahm's losing it, that's fine. Frankly, the better case against Rahm is that he's doing a lot of the damage with the putter, and that his driver is not particularly as strong as it has been in the past. But you can't really argue with the results otherwise. Third over the past 3 months, Jason Day, 2.55 strokes gained per round adjusted for field strength. He's got 7 straight top 20 finishes with a great all-around game. It's not just the short game. He seems pretty back, and without looking, I feel like you're going to be in on him. So
shocker.
Max Homa, 2.41, pretty similar profile today in the sense of great putting, but also great iron play, even better than Jason Day. Won the Farmers in late January, 4 straight top 15 since then. Historically, he's been a bad player in majors. I don't know if that's fair because Max is very clearly a different golfer than he has been over the majority of his career. Again, though, if you're like, I think people are too into Max, doesn't show up at majors, that's kind of like you kind of have to get to that point with golfers to get them out of your player pool, or else you're going to try to be playing, you're going to be trying to play everybody.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. So, with Day, you're like, he's not going to hold up. Like the back's going to be an issue. He just kind of had some I think it was supposedly allergies, but
don't tell me this right now.
I'm
going to be nervous from now until Sunday night. Well, probably Tuesday night based on the weather forecast. If you make me worry about Jason Day allergies right now.
Welcome to rostering Jason Day.
I mean, I never used to be here, so I feel like this is just me making up for lost time.
Next up, Patrick Cantlay. And don't get lost in what a list this is of superstars who are in great form right now. Cantlay's at a 2.3. The ball striking is dialed. He's got 4 straight top 20s, including top 4s at the Genesis and the Arnold Palmer. Historically not maybe the greatest in majors, but 2 straight top 15s at majors. Again, if you think Cantlay doesn't have it in majors well enough, sure, cross him off. If you want a golfer who does everything well and is in good form, Cantlay should be someone you consider. Rory, 2.26. Switched over to a new putter. Saw him run a ton by at match play when I was watching, but also, almost won the whole thing. So which is it? Is the putter back? But again, it's the putter. You can say Rory at Augusta, he's all just backdooring everything. He's never going to be in contention. But the solo.
He almost backdoor to win last year. So if Scotty had just slipped a bit, he could have done it.
Well, Scheffler 9 putted on 18, but Tony Finau feels like Finau's toast right now. Where's he been? Well, people, I've not seen the best sentiment on Tony Finau. He's at a 2.19. Top 10 Tony, no top 10s in 5 straight starts. Got to be bad, right? But those were all top 25s. Elite iron play, historically good at the Masters. The putter for him, definitely trending up. Colin Morikawa's at a 2.12. Xander's at a 2.01. Then it's a teardrop to Cameron Young at a 1.91. And then a drop to Tyrrell Hatton at a 1.75. Who's got a nice mid-range salary but hates Augusta. So there's a very clear, I guess Xander is the cutoff. Top 9 then in terms of great super recent form. And we got to figure out how to differentiate between these guys and whittle it down. It's not super easy. So if your reasoning is maybe Scheffler's got he's in his own head with the putter, if that's what it takes for you to whittle it down, I can't argue with it. I think he's the best process play though. Mm-hmm. But you gotta figure out something, right?
So we're going to talk about Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory in the betting section. But I did want to dig into Homa and Cantlay because you mentioned that Homa, not the best major history, but the caveat being he's golfing out of his mind right now and at a better level than he's been for past majors. Cantlay's been at this level for a bit, maybe not at this level, he's been really good recently, but he's been a relevant name for a very long time and hasn't had any pop performances at majors. Does that worry you at all? Because Cantlay's in a range that I kind of want to be in. His salary in FanDuel is 11-1. We do have Xander Schauffele at 10-8. Not a lot of major concern there. Colin Morikawa, 11,000. I've heard of him a couple times in majors, just throwing that out there. Jason Day, 10-7, as you know, is my guy right now, apparently, unless he has allergies. So is there enough concern with Homa and Cantlay around the major performance where you are lower on them? Or do you think that's just going to lower their roster rates?
I think it'll probably lower it a little bit. I prefer Max because the salary is much more generous. And in that range, I'd rather just play Xander at 10-8 than Cantlay, I think. It's close. I like Cantlay as a better... It's my win simulation model likes Cantlay, Finau, and Xander, which is not a huge surprise, at their respective odds. So I might as well just be all right playing Xander and Finau and having Cantlay third on that list due to the salary on FanDuel, but it's not I'm out on Cantlay. As
Yeah.
for Max, you know, he was he's top 15, I think, at the PGA.
His salary is also 10-4, so it's a bit of a different discussion
Yeah.
for him versus Cantlay at 11-1.
So he was T13 at the PGA, T47 at the US Open, missed the cut at the Open. Has not really putted well at a lot of the majors, but the ball striking has been kind of fine, especially lately. So I'm not writing off Max simply due to the fact that he's historically been pretty bad at majors. Made a cut finally at the Masters last year with the T48, 2 missed cuts before that. So he's played here 3 times. I don't see enough to move away from that.
Yeah.
I think the
other reason to be less skeptical of Max is that he has been putting up sick performances against very good fields. Like, a lot of his best finishes have come in the elevated events. Whereas, like, in the past, we talk about him on the California swing and he'd be like, okay, it's January events. He's from California. That's why Homa popped there. Maybe that didn't translate, but like, that has followed him beyond those events this year in really tough fields. So Homa at 10-4, I think if you go with like a very balanced approach, he should be one of the guys you would turn to. I don't worry about it for him. I think it's more of a discussion with Cantlay than it is with Homa down at 10-4. Let's dig into what the bookmakers are saying for this week, where we have an actual favorite, a standalone favorite right now. Scotty Scheffler shortened to 7-1. He is the favorite of FanDuel Sportsbook. Rory McIlroy plus 750. John Rahm, the final guy before a fall off, he is 9-1. We got Jordan Spieth at 17, Patrick Cantlay at 19, Cam Smith back into our lives here at 21-1. Justin Thomas is 22-1. Tony Finau at 24. Colin Morikawa and Xander Schauffele are both 25-1. And Cameron Young and Jason Day rounding out the top group. They are both 27-1. So let's talk about those top studs here. Typically, when we come to a major, well, we don't come, but we talk about them. From a DFS perspective, we say we want to have balanced lineups because we want as many guys with a realistic shot to win or finish top 10 as possible. But here we have 3 guys with win odds of 9-1 or shorter. Nobody else is shorter than 17. Does that impact your approach to roster construction for a major versus where you've been in the past?
So I ran my optimizer with max win odds from my simulation model, and it has all 3 in it with 2 punt plays, which I don't like. And I'm not going to do that. I also optimized it for best official World Golf rankings, and then I don't have anyone higher salary than Patrick Cantlay. So I could see the case any which way. If you're really selling out for the winners, I would probably say you can mess around with playing 2 of the top 3.
Okay.
What I'm more likely to be doing is going with one of them and then a modified balance from there, which means that I won't have someone in the 11,000 range along with them. It'll be more like a Xander or, a Homa. I like Jason Day well enough still. And Tony Finau 10-1, get one of the studs balanced from there. That is much more likely as to what I'll actually do in the majority of my lineups than try to get 2 of them in there, because it's going to, you get a lot of win equity, but you're also kind of getting 2 zeros in terms of potential winners from the bottom of your player pool as well.
Yeah, I think that the 1+ balance is the way that I want to go. Hypothetically, if you put John Rahm, who is the lowest salary guy in that tier, in there with, again, hypothetically, Jason Day and Tony Finau, who would do that? Not me. They're definitely not my player picks. You're 91.33 left per golfer for your final 3 slots. I like guys in the $83,000, $8,300 rate. 83,000 would be a lot. That's actually Scotty Scheffler. 8,300 hypothetically, again, I like a guy there. So that leaves me with 95.50 left for my final 2 slots. That means I could get back up to the 10,000 range if I wanted to for one of those, or I could go with a Sung J M, Victor Hovland, guys like that. I can do that. Matty Fitz is 95. Anyway,
I was waiting for that.
I think that approach works really well. So to me, if you give me one single entry lineup, I'm going one of the big three plus two other guys in the 10,000 range. Maybe, I mean, I'm okay with it. It's like, Sung J M is the third guy or whatever. I haven't looked at Sung J specifically, but like, I think that kind of approach is very fun. So I think, again, you give me one lineup, that's the way I go. One stud, one of the big three, plus two in the 10,000 range. Maybe can't lay at 11-1 if they get a bit more top heavy, but I think that's the way I want to play things this week.
Yeah, I'm digging back at like these winning lineup constructions just from a salary standpoint. Last year we had three guys at 11-2 or higher in the Mega Eagle winning lineup, and then 93, 83, and 81. That was with Kevin Na getting top 15, Corey Connors inside the top 6. I just have a hard time. Really liking anyone in the 7,000 range. There are two names that kind of draw my attention, but I don't really want to tie up a ton of lineups to like just two options. And those names are Taylor Moore and Taylor Gooch. With Moore at just 73, Gooch is 77. I think I'm going a little bit more balanced. My question to you is, what is the lowest salary you think you will have in your player pool?
I don't think Taylor Moore is a bad play. So I could be receptive to him at 73. So if I'm multi-entering, I could see myself using more. If I'm using one lineup,
how many? Like if you're building, let's say 5 lineups,
I probably have him in one.
Even if that really changes your lineup construction pretty substantially for one.
Yeah, because let's say I keep the same approach where I go with the again, let's go Rom, Day, and Tony Finau, and then I go with Taylor Moore at $7,300. Back up to 10,500 or 10,050 for my final 2 slots. I can get Max Homa in there and then get a guy at 97 for my final slot. So I think that is actually pretty fun. Or I could go more top heavy and go Taylor Moore and get 2 of the big 3 in there. So yeah, for 20% of my roster construction, going a bit more top heavy, I'm fine with that personally. I think that works. But if you give me one lineup, that would not be my approach. One lineup, I'm not going below Keegan Bradley at 83. I think that's where my floor would be.
Yeah, Keegan at 83 and Kurt Kitayama 83 as well. I think those are.
I'm not as in Kitayama personally. A little bit worried about the debutante narrative. Yeah, that's the main hang up for me.
That matters mostly for winners.
Yeah,
it's not helpful not to have played here.
Right,
that much is certain, but I don't care so much in DFS. But
I do think that one thing that helps is that there are a decent number of guys in the mid 8,000 range who I like. I mentioned Mito Pereira earlier. I do like him at 86. Siwoo Kim doesn't really count as a mid range, or he's 88. It's a little bit higher end. Tom Hoagie at 85.
Boy.
The approach god. He's replaced Scott Piercy. Sorry, Scott.
Keith Mitchell
could work. Yeah. So there are a lot of guys there I don't mind. Do I want to have 2 there? I don't know. I'd probably prefer to go with 1, but I think that 83 is my floor if I'm doing one lineup.
I think so too. If I'm doing like 5 lineups, I'm probably going to keep it around there because there's a very real possibility that how I settle things is build a lineup I like a lot and duplicate it and then switch out the top 3 guy in case that person wins.
I think that works.
I just like that idea more. Speed of Moore. Taylor Moore is top 50 in the official World Golf rankings, which is surprising to me, again, because I don't track them. But we also have a good crop of names who are outside the top 50 because they don't accrue OWGR points currently, like Mito, Gooch, DJ, Reed, Harold
What's
Varner. These guys
what's
are all
Taylor Moore's like top 10 odds in your win sims? I'm asking this on the spot, so you can take your time. But like, he's 280 to 1 to win at FanDuel, and maybe I'm just getting a little high on an $8 or $7,300 guy, but that seems long.
top 10 odds,
Yeah.
like 9%.
Okay. So we were talking about having him
23% to top 20, which is probably more. You're probably looking more for like a T18 from Taylor Moore at that low of a salary.
18 is very specific.
Well, it's like top 12.
Yeah. But like 9% to top 10 is not a bad number for a guy there. And I think that as long as you're not going like crazy with your exposure. So I think that like having him in 1/5 of my lineups, I'm okay with that. I can get behind that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't dislike it. I'm probably more likely to play Taylor Moore than Taylor Gooch.
Uh-huh.
I kind of think that, I mean, Taylor Moore has been, like, we know what he's doing. He's putting really well. He's got really good iron play more often than not. Good ball
off the tee plays pretty good. Got some distance. Not terrible around the green.
Yeah.
Maybe I will go Taylor Moore in a single entry. I mean, like the way to do it is you have multiple single entry lineups in different contests. That's the way to play things. Yeah. It would be my like first. If you gave me one lineup, I would not have him in. Maybe I'm at least considering it now. This is the good path to making dumb decisions is getting too high on a low 7,000 guys. So proceed with caution, but I don't think it's totally dumb personally.
Yeah, I think I just always like to be able to pivot and build similar lineups so that I can keep my core like tight.
Yeah. I mean, you can still keep your core tight, just you're using
a
different. You're getting actually different combinations, which is kind of nice. So I think I actually like it from that perspective.
All right. Taylor Moore
versus Scotty Scheffler. Bet me. Heads up. FanDuel points. If this happens, I'm clipping this, just so you know. We don't ever pull clips from this podcast, but I will from this, just so you know. Okay, we mentioned that Scheffler's odds have shortened. He was plus 750. He's now 7-1. Which other golfers have had their odds shift in a notable fashion the past couple days?
I'll start with those whose odds have shortened, which means that they're getting betting attention. Patrick Cantlay, 21-19. This is from Friday into Monday afternoon on FanDuel Sportsbook. Tony Finau, 32-24. Love that for Tony. Brooks Koepka, 75-37. I think Brooks is going to get some attention at a salary of 8,900 this week.
Will he get attention from you? I'm interrupting you. Will he get attention from you?
Man, I was playing Brooks in majors for too long.
Yeah. I
think it'd be interesting. I would pay substantial money for like a Brooks Scotty Scheffler final pairing, just to see Brooks melt down as Scotty Scheffler's unfazed by anything. But I think for me, probably not going to get there. Yeah. I don't think it. I mean, forgive me. I think he won twice.
Yeah, he won Jeddah, I think. Yeah, Jeddah.
I think other than that, it's been kind of spotty.
Yeah.
29th in Tucson, 31st at Mayakoba. Missed the cut on that one of the Asian Tour events that they did.
But we know that Brooks Koepka only gets that for the big events, which is why he won Orlando. When I think of big events, I think of Mystique. I think of Orlando on the Live Tour. No disrespect to Orlando, by the way, cool city, but yeah. Orlando.
I think I'm firmly out on Brooks.
Okay. I think with the thought process that he will gain popularity, I'd agree. Yep. Okay, who else is shortened?
If I'm gonna play a Live guy in that range, it's gonna be Neiman.
Mito. Oh, can we get a Chile bet here? Mito versus Joaquin.
No, those guys are friends.
I know, but
watch Full Swing. They're friends.
What's that do to us? betting it.
We're not friends.
Give me a Mito versus Joaquin bet.
Sure, I'll take that.
The loser has to buy the winner
Nope.
a Chilean flag. Nope. Okay, I tried.
We
continue.
do head to heads. We have stakes on other things.
Not doing great in those though. So I need something.
Hey, coincidentally, two bobble hats
being worn on the podcast,
being worn on the show right now.
Yeah.
So I gotta jot this down.
Oh, you're actually doing it?
Yeah, well, you said so.
Oh yeah. You said you wouldn't buy me a Chilean flag when I win.
Yeah,
sorry,
but we don't have anything on the line for on the fly head to head.
Yeah, the one thing I'm good at.
Yeah.
Love it. Who else is shortened?
Corey Connor, 75-48. Tommy Fleetwood, 75-50. Minwoo Lee, 75-55. Patrick Reed, 90-70.
Why?
Former winner.
So he was a former winner last week.
People love him.
Why?
I don't know. Fourth at Orlando.
So
don't know a single stat about that.
Whose odds have lengthened? I don't want to talk about Patrick Reed anymore.
So I have Rory and Rahm just because I think it's noteworthy. If Scheffler shortened, they lengthened. Rory was 7. He's now 7.5 to 1. Rahm was 8.5. He's now 9.5, but now down to 9. I think he moved.
Oh, really?
No, he's been wavering. Cam Smith 21-24. Jason Day 24-29. Sam Burns 32-41, and Tiger Woods 55-85.
We haven't talked about Tiger yet.
No, I've been trying to avoid it.
Tiger Woods' salary is $9,100. Are you in or out at that salary?
I'm out.
Okay, me too. Very lengthy discussion there. One thing we did not discuss when discussing the studs is a cash game. You're picking one there. I assume it's Scheffler, correct?
For me, it's Scheffler.
Okay.
His game is the most complete. He can get out of trouble most easily, it feels like. I think Rory, with the fact that it's the Masters, which has eluded him, with the live guys around, I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Rory once again. I think Scottie Scheffler is going to wake up and feel a little pressure because he just doesn't feel like he's good enough, but that's like no different. He's not going to care who he's playing with. And then Jon Rahm would probably be my second option. I'd probably rank them Scheffler, Rahm, Rory right now. What about you?
For a cash game,
yeah,
Scheffler 1, Rahm 2, Rory 3. So the same as you. I'd agree.
Okay.
I think that's the correct ranking for that. For tournaments, I do like Rory a lot, but for cash games, I'd agree with that. Which golfers with lower salaries have odds that stand out to you?
Yeah, so if I filter things to 9,000 and lower, the best odds there's a few and then it drops off a ton, which is another reason why you're probably want to be hesitant on loading up on too many value plays. But Brooks Koepka, of course, 37 to 1, Minwoo Lee 55, Patrick Reed 70, and Joaquin Niemann 85. All those guys are really hovering at the 9,000 range, between 88 and 9,000. Mito Pereira, your boy, 100 to 1 at 8,600 on FanDuel.
I'm not taking the label right now, please.
I
will use him. There's a difference.
Siwoo Kim, Keith Mitchell, both 120. Bryson, haven't mentioned his name yet, 130. Same as Sahith Theegala. Adam Scott. Adam Scott and Louis Westhuizen or Westhuizen doesn't. Well, maybe he does care now. We haven't talked about him long enough. Maybe he's made a decision on that pronunciation. And Kurt Kitayama, 140, and our guy Tom Hoagie, 150. So a sprinkle of like standouts from that standpoint, but not a lot.
Ton. Keith Mitchell, $8,500. We know that he is a guy who has the distance, but also just like a good driver. I don't believe he's played Augusta before. Am I wrong in that? Let me check here really quick. I don't think he has. Checking. Oh, he did. He played here in 2019. Keith Mitchell, $8,500 in a range that we'll likely be in. What's your read on him for this week?
I think he's a player pick for me.
Is he? Oh,
So,
I like it. I like Keith Mitchell.
I
I'm on
mean,
board.
really good off the tee. One
Mhm.
of the most balanced drivers that we have. But while it's not as impactful as I think most people want to assume it is, it's still important to be good off the tee.
Yeah.
He does have like that one dominant trait at least to keep him like afloat, and off the tee play is the most predictable of all of the strokes gain stats. So he should be able to pick up strokes on the field, and then from there, if he can just get up and down, be relevant from there, it's a pretty reasonable value profile from that regard.
He's not a standout anywhere else, but he's also not like actively hideous anywhere
Yeah.
else. So I think that helps him too. So I do like Keith Mitchell. Okay. Weather for this week sucks. There are isolated thunderstorms during the day Thursday, but minimal wind. That is the best day in the forecast. Scattered thunderstorms. Great. Rain odds increase throughout the day Friday and then just never go down. Wind speeds be around 10 to 7 miles per hour. So that could lead you to prioritizing certain tee times within some lineups, but I have no idea who would benefit because we're almost definitively going to see stoppages and it's probably not going to end on Sunday. So shrug emoji, don't know. Weather's going to suck. Does that force you, Brandon, to consider having more volatility in the way you view things where you lower exposures to guys multi-entering? How do you handle things knowing the weather is going to be booty?
Yeah, I think there's a high risk of playing the tea time wave game and getting it wrong and getting the worst end of it. It's also possible that just everyone has it terribly. So I think for me, I think the real thing is it's going to make me more aggressive in avoiding the super chalk, where if we get a read that it's Monday, it's earlier than even normal for us to record this. But we can kind of use like betting odds as a bit of a proxy for who's going to be popular. According to fansharesports.com right now, John Rahm is a little bit separating from the field in terms of his buzz. I mean, historically great at this course. I like Rahm. I see the case for it, but if I could just play Rory instead, even though I prefer Rahm, like I think I'm just going to be more willing to avoid the most popular plays and try to benefit from whatever chaos there is. And if a star gets, misses the cut and I can benefit from it, like I'm willing to roll those dice more. And the fear of not playing ROM at a high popularity number is kind of lessened if the weather's going to be real bad.
I think that's where I'm at too. Is it decreases the FOMO because there are greater odds that things get a little wonky. So I think that's the way I view things as well. Okay, let's dig in now to our player picks here for the 2023 Masters. Brandon, beginning in the upper salary tier, who is catching your eye on FanDuel for this week?
The one guy I do have FOMO with is Scotty Scheffler. It just feels like whenever his game is on, and it feels this way for Rahm too, but it feels like whenever Scheffler's game is on, he won't go away. I know that Rahm has the nickname of the buoy, but I kind of feel like that's Scheffler right now. It just looks like he's never going to play himself out of a tournament by playing silly, trying to play the hero shot or press. He is a very laid back guy externally. I think there's a lot more going on internally than he makes it seem. But frankly, this comes down like we can look at the stats, but it comes down to like sort of game theory and also just a gut feel at a certain point because the margin's razor thin between Scheffler, Rahm, and Rory. Maybe it's getting a little bit bigger with Rory dropping out of that race over the super recent rounds, but Scheffler, everyone's going to hit bad shots over a 72-hole event, especially at a course like this. I feel like Scheffler is best suited just to take his medicine or play a hero shot whenever he can and be able to pull it off. If he's not going to be the most popular play, if it ends up being Rahm, which is kind of the early trend right now, I have Scheffler number one, both in cash games and in tournaments. I'm willing to move away from Scheffler a bit in tournaments if it turns out that everyone wants to play Scotty and the whole read is wrong on Rahm. But it's so razor thin. I don't really know how you sit here and definitively say like one guy is the best play. And if I had to, it's going to be Scheffler.
Yeah, I think that straight up, it's Scheffler. I think that the read we're getting is that Scheffler is the betting favorite, which means he'll get attention. He's also the highest salary guy. Your research has shown they tend to get a lot of attention. Rahm is getting a lot of tags on FanShare, which means Rory McIlroy might fly a bit under the radar. So I like Rory. He is my top player pick this week for tournaments. Again, Scheffler, I think is a better cash game play, but Rory, elite form at Augusta, despite not having that green jacket just yet. 4 top fives. He has 2 in the past 3 years. He ranks 3rd at true strokes gained the past 6 months. So he is behind both Rahm and Scheffler in that time, but he has the best distance of that group. And again, distance is never a bad thing. McIlroy's gotten dragged down by poor putting at times, but you mentioned the equipment change there, and that could happen here. He could putt poorly. He missed the cut here 2 years ago. It definitely can happen, but I have a hard time laying off Rory if he's going to be the least popular of this group. I think that for tournaments, he is very interesting, and I don't want to write him off just because he's been not quite as elite as Scheffler and Rahm in the past 3 months or so. I think that he can still tap back into that. Now, you mentioned that our optimal roster construction is to have one stud and then dip into the 10,000 range. When you look at the 10,000 range guys, who is your favorite in that discussion?
Yeah, I mean, optimal in terms of what I think I'm going to be most likely to do. It's going to be Xander. Once again, like, it's not really a bit anymore that I like Xander, but I don't know how you would kind of dislike Xander at this salary. You know, he tends to be chalky. I think the luster has worn off, and there's other plays that people like more than Xander at this rate. Missed the cut here last year, but 3rd in 2021, 17th in 2020, 2nd in 2019. He's 14th in the field in strokes gained tee to green, 14th in ball striking, 11th in short game strokes gained over the past 50 rounds. You can't convince me that he's a bad play.
No, I don't think he is, and I think that he's totally fine. I considered both Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay for my second player pick. I still on Jason Day, and I think both those guys are good plays too. But the reason I picked Day is he's lower salary to 10-7 than both those guys. He comes with a better track record at the Masters and in majors more broadly, at least than Cantlay. Day is a 2.24 true strokes gained the past 6 months per Data Golf, which ranks 6th in the entire field and getting that for 10-7. He's doing it via gaining strokes in every category. We've seen incredible event to event consistency, which can be a bad thing if it implies there's not upside, but we've seen upside from Jason Day too. And we see that consistency because he can gain strokes in so many different ways. If the putter is somehow off one week, he can gain strokes tee to green. He's 10-7. I think that gives me a more balanced approach. So I do like Jason Day as a way to regain that balance. He is my favorite guy in this range over Schauffele and over Cantlay, not by a lot, but by enough where I do feel good about Jason Day as my number 2 golfer. Let's dig now to the mid-range. Our second player. Oh, go ahead.
Is there anyone you don't like? Let's say
Cameron Smith.
So you don't like Cam Smith.
Yeah.
Where are you with JT?
I think he's a good person to consider. I don't think I will get there. I think that's the way I would phrase it is I don't think I will get there. There aren't a lot of guys I actively dislike. I think I'm more likely to use Colin Morikawa than Justin Thomas, though.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm getting. Spieth.
I will not get there with Jordan Spieth.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Why?
Final rounds on Easter Sunday.
Okay, he's won the past 2 Easters. I've seen this stat.
I definitely don't mind Spieth, but yeah. It's basically what I was trying to get at is anyone
the Easter narrative.
Anyone from Jason Day and above, it sounds like you're kind of out on Cam Smith.
I'm not out on Cantlay at 11-1.
And then Morikawa.
Yeah, I think Morikawa, I would need a decent number of lineups to get there, but like I am more
You're not like actively down.
No.
Okay.
So I just prefer this roster construction.
So basically then, and I think anyone should be able to make this case, aside from Cam Smith, who I'd be fine just sort of getting to because I think Cam Smith's going to play fairly well sort of as a baseline, whether he plays well enough to win is its own conversation. Everyone's in play.
Yeah.
And that's what,
when we talk about being different without being dumb, there isn't really a dumb option up here. So trust your gut. I know, do your own research. Sorry, it's a weird phrase now. Like, think about things, and if you have a read that you think that JT is going to feast this week, use it.
Yeah.
That's justifiable. I think that they're all justifiable is the way I would phrase it.
But
these are our favorites, and we want to stand by those plays.
Yeah.
But they're justifiable. If we go to the mid-range on FanDuel for the Masters, we both have the same top mid-salaried option. That guy is Tony freaking Finau at $10,100. Brandon, tell me why you're on Finau, then I'll tell you why I'm here as well.
I think the salary is too low on Finau. I talked about him in terms of the current form, where the salary is, or sorry, where the he's not finishing top 10, so he's not top 10 Tony right now, but he is top 25 Tony right now. And over the past 50 rounds, the ball striking is phenomenal. He's putting really well, which has not always been the case for Finau. The wedge play is the one knock that you could have on Finau, but I think he's kind of a capable around the green player, and around the green play stats are really volatile, especially because they kind of come from a smaller sample and they're so dependent on things like hole outs or, atrocious shots. So for me, Finau has the form, has the course form, has the ball striking, has the putting, just has it all, and the salary's too low.
That's why I'm here too. I just think I agree with you. We're saying he's under salary because if you look at true strokes gained, he ranks 5th the past 6 months over at Data Golf, but he ranks 15th in salary. That gap is bigger than it should be. Like, I think if you put Tony Finau at 10-6, I'm still considering him. I'm not as high on him as I am, but I would consider him relative to Jason Day, Xander Schauffele, Max Homa, guys in that tier. That's how I view Tony Finau. So in DFS, I want to stack value. And to me, if I can get $500 or $400 worth of edge on a golfer, I'm going to take that every time. So Tony Finau to me is, if I have one lineup, Tony Finau is one of the bigger locks to be in that in the entire field, just because I think that he grades out so well relative to the rest of his tier, fits my roster construction, and is just a guy who I know has the upside to win this event. Who else do you like in the mid-range beyond Tony Finau at 10-1?
I like Corey Connors, and I don't think I'll be alone in that. Liked him before the win. Like him still. The win odds have dropped a lot, but it is still Corey Connors, and we're not talking like a Rafa Cabrera Bello where he's 74 instead of 94. He's still 94, and he has a pretty weak short game, despite the fact that he's like figured out Augusta really well. So I'm not going to move off of it. I'm more inclined to move off of plays at the top end. Now, again, if Connors is like top 5 in projected roster rate, that's different, but I don't think he'll quite get there with all the superstars we have. Good iron player, top 20 in approach over the past 50 rounds, 3 straight top 10s at Augusta National. I mean, he's got to avoid missing too many greens so he's not relying on the up and down game.
Yeah.
He's got to make some putts, which, maybe not as certain as we'd like to assume, but he can kind of keep himself neutral with the putter. And then if you give me a good ball striker at 94, I think it just makes a ton of sense for someone who clearly is feels comfortable at Augusta.
For sure. And so I think that's what we can like. Corey Connors. I have Justin Rose as my next player pick, but I did want to ask you, are we overlooking Matt Fitzpatrick at $9,500? Yeah. It's a neck, right?
Yeah, I think he's just not healthy enough.
Yeah.
The iron plays down, kind of seems to be losing some distance. He did a lot of work to gain distance. Didn't bulk up like Bryson did, but like that experiment might have gotten him a US Open. And I don't know. I think he said that that's been an issue for a long time. So I don't want to I'll never speak ill of training.
Which was the event where he was like the favorite going in, and it came out on like Wednesday that he was like playing despite being hurt. Was that, how long ago was that? Do you remember? because he at the Arnold Palmer, he golfed really well. The ball striking there was good. The short game didn't come up for him. He wasn't great at the Players or the Valspar, but then he was okay at the match play. So I'm curious, like, if he still has upside, I'm okay with risk if it comes with upside. But I'm like here when the injury, because like you said it's been around there for a while. But I know he mentioned specifically he's going to play through it at an event where he was like the favorite going in.
I jettison a lot of info from a week to week basis. So
from your brain,
you're asking the wrong person.
There was it was at Pebble Beach. So this is in February. He's had events since then where he has popped. So I think if you're okay with risking a tournament, he's still interesting.
Yeah, he was my poster boy for Pebble Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Had him at like 9% to win.
He lost 4.21 on approach per round. Well, that was only one round because it's Pebble Beach, but with ShotLink. Yeah. But I think he's interesting.
So I mean, there's Matt Fitzpatrick, Will Zalatoris, Hideki. These guys are all kind of injured. Jason Day, you could maybe throw in that. Like,
he's fine.
Sorry.
So I'll put that in the ether.
So, like, I don't know. You could maybe make the case that some of those options are going to be forgotten about.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing in like a super large tournament.
Yeah.
Sure. You could go super chalky and then like Matt Fitzpatrick if everyone's just not interested. And that can be all it kind of takes. The winning lineups for the Mega Eagle are not loaded up with golfers at super low draft percentages. Over the 30 who made it, only 4 were sub 5% rostered. 11 were sub 10%, but 2 of those were like almost 10%. So like you don't have to get super weird.
Yeah.
If you're taking one option out of your 6 and getting a little bit different, you can be pretty chalky otherwise.
He's at least in play. I do think the safer option, though, is Justin Rose, who is my second player pick at 93. Rose has done well at Augusta, even in years where his form was not super, super great. Finished 7th here in 2021. He's added a bit more distance since the new year, which is kind of new. And it's led to Rose gaining off the tee at both the Players and the Valspar. He's got good approach play. He's a good putter. He's 93. We know Rose knows Augusta. Brandon, any thoughts for you on Justin Rose at 93?
Definitely don't mind it. Probably should be more open to it than I am. But certainly not a name that I'm talking anyone out of by any means.
I do like Connors in this range again. I want to reiterate that. I thought about Tom Kim. The form is not as elite as it had been, which is kind of why I got talked off. That plus like debut stuff like that, but thought about it at least.
Yeah. Kim's interesting to some degree there.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the value range. Who stands out to you at $9,000 or lower?
I'm going Joaquin Niemann at 9,000. Cam Smith, again, I already said this, but Cam Smith has said like there's no animosity. Joaquin Niemann had an interview where he's like, these guys hate us. And I'm not quoting him, but the sentiment was like, these guys hate us and I'm ready to like sort of shut them up more or less. So again, it's a narrative. Just wanting to be good and saying that you're like going to play well does not mean that you'll play well, or else I would just tell myself that and, play a lot better golf than I do. But I think the case is still there for Niemann. He has finished outside the top 30 in the past 2 live events, but ended 2022 with good results. Top 10 in both Asian Tour events in February. We know what Niemann is, unless his game is completely different, and that's someone who can gain distance off the tee despite his smaller frame. Can absolutely gain strokes with his approach play, and we've seen him play well in tough fields and generally looks unfazed. Seems like he's going to be locked in. So he's kind of the one name that I'm looking to from the live guys. I could I could also be talked into your boy who you've been just
Stop
talking
calling
up,
him that.
just
Oh my
talking up
God.
for
Ugh.
hours and hours and weeks. Can't wait to play Mito Pereira at the Masters. So Jim, now's the time. Tell me why I should like Mito Pereira at the Masters.
He is my second player, my first value player pick. He's the one live guy I'm like decently high on for this week. $8,600 Mito Pereira. He's golfed well since he joined the live tour, both there and on the Asian tours. Kind of similar to what you discussed with Joaquin Neiman. It's nice to see him doing well, even in like the more traditional formats. And Pereira has done that. He finished sixth at the Saudi International. He was second in another one, 11th in another. He's been pretty good, and then good in the live events as well, the three that he's played in. He's never played Augusta. That's the one downside for Pereira, but for 86, I think he makes a lot of sense. So I do like Mito quite a bit, given he is $400 lower salaried than Neiman. I think he's been golfing pretty well. I know he's shown he can like do really well in this kind of field. So I'm on Mito. It could be stupid, but I've done stupider. I can guarantee that. Who else do you like in the value range?
I got Keith Mitchell, T43 in 2019 at Augusta, which was his lone start. In the calendar year of 2023, he's got 4 top 25s and only 1 missed cut, which came back in his first start of the year. One of the best drivers, as we talked about. That gives him a high floor because the driver just is the most consistent because the conditions are the same with every shot. So for me, I think Mitchell at 85, very much going to be a core part of my process for the week among what is a pretty solid like mid 8,000 range, as you
Yeah, I
pointed
think it's
out.
totally fine. I do like this range. I do like Keith Mitchell. I prefer by a bit Keegan Bradley at 83. He has not played Augusta since 2019, so actually the same time as Keith Mitchell. So the 2019 narrative in full swing here. And for Keegan, honestly, just middling results when he has been here, but he's been playing good golf for a good amount of time now, and it's his best golf in a while. Specifically, Keegan is showing upside. He's gained 2+ strokes via Data Golf's True Strokes gained in 4 out of 11 events, 4 was past 11, and he's been at 1.80 or higher in 2 of those as well. So 6 out of 11, 1.80 or higher. The putting and chipping even better for Keegan, even while maintaining solid irons. He's 83, so I think Kitayama, he mentioned, is in play too at 83. I prefer Keegan. I do like Keith Mitchell. I like Mito. So I think the overall takeaway is this range is not bad.
Yeah.
I don't mind Taylor Moore, again, to reiterate that at 73, but this range is really not bad. And I think that it kind of drives home for me that I can get to Tony Finau or maybe Max Homa as my third ranked golfer in salary and still feel pretty good about things. Any final thoughts for you on the DFS side of things before we do win picks?
No, I think we covered roster construction and touched on the always important, like, look, it's the Masters. We did the 11,000 range and up. You could maybe draw some like hesitation with a Sam Burns or Dustin Johnson or something. But even the 10,000 range and up is all viable. So it's sort of a lot of personal preference.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we talk about like what we think are the best process plays.
Uh-huh.
But if you're playing like big tournaments, then there are a lot of different ways to go. So I think we're covered there.
Okay, so let's talk about our win picks here. These are based on the win odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Brandon, when you look at those odds right now, the outright odds, who are your win picks for this week?
Well, so we want, first of all, we want to find the winners here.
Uh-huh.
And we're looking at
golfers. That is, in fact, the goal of a win pick. Thank you.
Well, we're looking at golfers who we also think are values at their current win odds. So the one no-brainer I'll go with is Tony Finau at 24.
Very
My
rude.
model has him at 19 to 1.
Extremely rude.
My model has him at 19 to 1. I would have preferred that we would have recorded at a time when he was like 32 or 29, but at 24, there's still value there. So he's my first.
Okay.
As far as my second goes, if I'm like building a betting card, I don't tend to bet the favorites very often.
Mm-hmm.
And I see I see value on Patrick Cantlay and Xander Schauffele at 19 and 25 respectively. But my model likes Sean Rahm better. He should be 9 to 1.
Oh,
But
Okay.
I think my head just says go Scotty Scheffler 70 to minute while you give me your picks so I can figure out which name I'm ultimately going to land on.
I could be a real D word and take Rom. Real duck. That's the word I was going for. Take Rom. I'm not going to. I'm going to take. Okay. Do you have the win picks up? Our historic win picks?
Yes.
Can you control F Jason Day to know, and then add 1 to that to find out how many times I picked him? Because I'm picking him again.
You picked him at Genesis at 37, API at 31, and the Players at 29, which was three pods in a row.
Okay, well, let's make it 4th time this year. Jason Day, 32-1 at FanDuel. I will take him as my first one. I would have taken Fino if you hadn't taken him. I'm not going to because I need to make up ground. So there's really no point there. But did you figure out your second one yet?
I really want to go Scheffler, but I'll trust the model. No, I'm going Scheffler.
Okay, then I'll go Rom. Fine. I mean, I trust your model. Like, I'm just going to do this the way I would bet it. And your model shows value on Rom at 950. So I'm going to take Rom at 9 or at 950.
So, yeah. So, like, there's, again, it's the value, but I want the max win odds. And I have Scheffler more likely to win than Rom.
Right. But it's a better value. And we're doing this over the course of 40 podcasts, which means we're putting out 80 total units of win units out there, which means you just want the best values. And so I'm going to take the best value and go John Rahm.
Yeah, but Scheffler's going to win, so it is what it is.
No, he's not. John Rahm is. Actually, Rory just guaranteed Rory victory. Rory, I expect half the jacket. Snip, down the middle. I want half the jacket as credit for your victory. You're welcome. So your win picks are Scotty Scheffler at 7-1. Idiot. And Tony Finau at 24-1. I've got Jason Day, part 7. For 29-1, and then John Rahm at plus 950. We'll see how things play out. Any final thoughts for you before we close up shop for today?
Deciding between like Scheffler and Rahm in Cantlay, like in terms of win picks, is just indicative of how it feels to build every single lineup this week because the stars are here, and it's going to be awesome.
Yep. They certainly are. And we'll see how things play out. The stars, meaning Keith Mitchell's in the field, and we are all rejoicing at that fact. That is all that we have here for today. But as mentioned, we are here every week across the PGA DFS season, breaking down our thoughts on the fields. If you want thoughts on non-Masters events, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. We also have MLB, NBA, UFC for select events, maybe with the UFC WWE merger, WWE DFS back, for you out there at some point. So
LA Knight, megastar.
I don't know what that is. That's not like a minor league baseball team or something.
No, he's a megastar.
I don't know what that is. Anyway, DFS pods right here. numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Also subscribe to the FanDuel YouTube page and check out Covering the Spread tomorrow for Brandon's thoughts from a betting perspective, where I'll mock him for not taking John Rahm here on the show. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter or want to ridicule you and John Rahm puts on the green jacket, where can they find you there?
That is going to be tough because I'm going to have to recommend and bet Rahm myself. Even though I picked Scheffler here. Oh boy. I'm on Twitter at Gdula13, GDULA13.
And I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcast. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your DFS lineups for the Masters. We'll talk to you once again next week. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.